Welcome to 56-Bit Cloud Cafe, your go-to destination for all tech topics in the cloud. I'm Athir Zalat.
And I'm Patrick Camilleri. And together we'll be addressing various cloud topics.
Hello everyone and welcome back to our podcast series on AWS SNS. In this episode, we will explore the architecture of SNS and how it interacts with other AWS services like Lambda, SQS, and Kinesis. So let's start. Now that we've covered the basics in the previous episode, I'm curious about the bigger picture. Can you walk us through the architecture of SNS and how it interacts with other AWS services?
Sure thing. So, Simple Notification Service, or SNS, it operates behind the scenes. It's fully serverless. You just use the APIs, the Application Programming Interfaces, that AWS makes public. When I say you, I mean you as a publisher, so you can send messages to a specific SNS topic which we discussed and described in the last episode. Then once that happens, once you send a message to a topic through the APIs of SNS, SNS behind the scenes will do a lot of message routing and delivery to ensure that that message reaches its subscribers. It reaches whoever or whatever is subscribed to that topic. These subscribers, as we said, can be people through email, through SMS, through push notifications on mobile phones, on iPhones and Android, etc. But it could also be applications. How those applications receive the message depends on the use case, but SNS can send messages to subscribers that are in the form of a Lambda function, for example, or in the form of an SQS, a simple queuing service queue. So these are all other AWS services that can subscribe to messages coming from SNS topics. And this allows a decoupled serverless architecture, and it's what we call an event-driven architecture, where one service is the event driver of other services. Other services react to what happens in the first service. And that message movement can happen through SNS.
Okay, perfect. That's helpful to understand how SNS fits into the AWS ecosystem. I'm particularly interested in some specific integrations. How can SNS be integrated with services like AWS Lambda, Amazon SQS, and Amazon Kinesis?
Right, so Lambda, as the first example here, you can trigger a Lambda function once you publish a message to a topic. If the Lambda function is subscribed to that topic, that Lambda will trigger. What happens inside that Lambda, it's all up to you, depending on the code inside. And this would enable serverless processing of notifications. So the messaging is serverless, and the actual processing of that message is also serverless through Lambda. You can have multiple Lambda functions talking to each other. You can have applications on EC2 instances talking to Lambda. There are so many use cases that you can use this. It's all about architecting it in a way which ultimately makes sense and is secure, is flexible, is scalable. SQS also integrates with SNS, and it integrates in a way which allows what we call fan-out architectures. Fan-out. Fan-out basically means that you're turning something which is one publisher into multiple queues. So it allows you to publish a single message, and that single message ends up on multiple SQS queues, so that then multiple subscribers can grab that message from those queues. You tell me, why should I do that? Why don't I just send the message to those subscribers? Because SQS has the feature, the queuing service has the feature to buffer, to keep for a temporary amount of time those messages. SNS does not have this. So like this, you're having the best of both worlds. You have one-to-many that SNS offers, and the buffering, the time allowing the subscribers to take their time in processing those messages that SQS ultimately offers. So like this, you have both SNS and SQS working together in a fan-out structure. Finally, it also integrates, SNS also integrates with Kinesis, which is another AWS service that handles high throughput data streams. It allows, in this case, SNS would send the messages to one or more Kinesis streams, and it allows real-time ingestion of those notifications into big data pipelines, so with very, very high volume.
Those integrations sounds powerful. What are some common use cases for integrating SNS with these services?
Right, so as to bring out an example of what we've discussed, so when SNS is integrating with Lambda, ultimately depends what that Lambda function is doing. But as an example of this would be image resizing, for example, right? Where you have an upload of an image. Let's say you upload an image to S3. This is the original image. S3 triggers SNS. It triggers a message saying an image was uploaded to S3. And SNS will send that message to Lambda. Lambda will receive the message, will trigger, will go onto S3, grab the image, and maybe split that image into multiple parts, or maybe resize the image into 3 different images, and then save them on S3 again. So you have a whole workflow where images can be resized and optimized without ever touching any servers physically. You have a fully serverless, highly scalable system using S3, SNS, and Lambda. The other one we spoke about was SQS. So SNS can integrate with SQS, allowing those fan-out architectures. And an example of this would be decoupling microservices, right? So you have one microservice which sends a message, let's say publishes an event called order has been placed in an e-commerce website. Now, that message might be saved into multiple queues, and other services might grab that message and do something with it. So one of them would save it to a database, the other would send a notification to the user, the other would maybe check if the stock in the warehouse is still okay, or if not, it will order new things, right? It will order a new batch of that of whatever product has been sold. So you can have a fully decoupled microservices system using SNS, and yes, you can use SQS with it as well. And then there is SNS with Kinesis, where you will use it for real-time processing, where you have large volumes of notifications. You can use it for that kind of use case, as an example.
That's perfect. I see how versatile SNS can be. One last thing I'm concerned about is reliability. How does SNS handle message delivery and ensure reliability?
First of all, SNS is highly reliable. It is reliable by default. It's a serverless service by AWS, so you can imagine all the work behind the scenes to ensure reliability. And it does this by grabbing those messages that are published and uses multiple availability zones to save those messages temporarily until they are sent out to the subscribers. It allows many subscribers, one-to-many, so delivery of those messages is not guaranteed but is nearly guaranteed. The reliability also comes from the huge amount of capacity that the service has, the ability to send to large volumes of subscribers. It has features like delivery retries, where depending on the type of subscriber, it can try sending that message multiple times for a small period of time until it times out. You can also use dead letter queues, DLQs. So this is a queue where any messages that were not delivered by SNS will end up in that queue, so that you can go then and manually, or with some other automated fashion, see why those messages were not delivered.
And by now, we've reached the end of our episode. Thank you for joining our discussion on SNS Architecture and Integrations. Next time, we will focus on the security and access control aspects of SNS. Until then, happy cloud computing!
If you have questions, suggestions, or want to share your feedback, connect with us on social media.
Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and to leave us a review to help others find their way to the Cloud Cafe.